Welcome to the After 5 p.m. podcast, where we clock out of mortgages at 5 p.m. and clock into family, life, and finances. This week we have an awesome guest, Rob Alphin. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here, and I really admire you and Ben for all that you had to the community, and I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. When we were starting the podcast, we made a list of, who are the top 10 people we want on the podcast, and your name was on both of our lists before we even compared notes. So we're excited to have you. We feel like you have, we have both looked up to you and what you've done in your career and tried to emulate some of the things that you have done, and kind of excited to unpack some of that today.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for making time and coming down from Northern Utah.
No, happy to.
So
belly to belly, right? I think I could learn that from you.
Yeah, that's right.
So to kind of jump in for the guests that are listening, or whoever's tuning into the podcast, let's kind of go over your background in the mortgage industry and how your roles have changed. When did you start originating loans as an originator?
So I started originating when I was in 1993, and it was really interesting how I got there, because it's one of the keys, I think, to the mortgage industry that some people overlook, that you really have to bake your goods before you harvest the fruit.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going through college and majoring in finance, and I was a real estate agent at that time. My dad was a real estate agent, and my dad and I in 1 month sold 22 homes in 1 month, and we were so excited. We were like, "This is awesome!" And my responsibility on our team was to track all the lenders and walk through with the customers, make sure that everything's good. And at that time, we had a great month, but 8 of them, the day of closing, the lenders go, "Yeah, sorry, don't qualify." And I was ticked. I'm like, how in the world can you take someone through the process and wait till the day of closing and it gets declined? So I'm just graduating in finance from college. I walk into Valley Bank and Trust, and I said to the manager, "I will be your top producer inside of 5 years. I just need a shot." He goes, "Do you know anything about mortgage?" I said, "I don't, but I've just sold real estate and I just graduated from college." And he actually started laughing at me. But he's like, "I like your spunk. I'm going to give you a shot." And what was neat about it is that time as a realtor and understanding what the realtor's needs were and what the realtors and the customers are trying to understand through the whole process gave me such a leg up. And it's interesting, at that time my contract was $2,200 a month and 5 basis points. Okay?
Mm.
And literally, because and I knew he was like, I'm going to give this guy a shot, okay? And he goes, "I'll try out for the first year." And at the time, I'm like, "Oh man, that's not a lot of money." But I did it. And in the first year, I ended up closing just under $16 million. Now, keep in mind, the average loan size back then was $75,000.
Yeah.
So had a great learning opportunity there.
Why did you choose that bank to walk in that? Was your dad sending that bank leads?
Yeah, so we had established a relationship with one of the top producers of that bank, and his name is Gary Johnson. And one of the things I love about the industry is that we all have to choose mentors. We always have to choose people that we can get advice from, that we can walk through some of the challenges we hit together, and they've been through it, and they know what they're doing. And so I chose that bank because Gary Johnson was there, and Gary was one of the guys that, when he said something, it was gold. And I always admired him about that. So with Gary, I'll never forget, so 93 I started. In 94, in 1 month, the rate shot up. At the time, the rates were in the 6s. In a matter of a week, the rate shot in the 6s up to 9 3/4.
Wow.
A year into the business. And I was freaking out. Okay. I just started a new career. And I'll never forget, I walk in and Gary's like, "How you feeling, Rob?" I'm like, "Dude, did I make the wrong call? This is just nuts." And he laughed and he goes, "People will always need the right service for the right reasons at whatever interest rate it is. You have to stay focused on how you can serve others. And I'll never forget that lesson. That was a huge lesson to say, no matter what market, we look to serve others. And that really set me off on my career. So I started off as a loan officer, and then I was blessed to be able to become a branch manager. And the key with the branch manager gig was literally talking to people and saying, how can we create a world together where you feel like you can see a future for your family and support your family. That was the real gig. And so just over time, I went from loan officer to manager to area manager.
Is that all within Valley Bank and Trust?
No. So I was at Valley Bank and Trust for a couple years, and then they sold out to Bank One.
Oh, okay.
And Bank One actually promoted me to be over the whole half of the state. And it was going great because they had portfolio product and all that stuff. And then one day they said, "Hey, we're gonna consolidate all our operations to Arizona." And that was the death, because all of a sudden you don't have any control over your timelines, the customer can expect, all that stuff. And so that's when I decided to make a change, and I made a change to CTX Mortgage because a friend of mine had started that group, and we just started growing from there.
I'm not familiar with CTX. Is that a banker model, mortgage banker model?
They're a mortgage banker, but they were owned by Centex Homes, the national home builder, Centex Homes. Mm-hmm. They were out of Texas, and they developed a mortgage company, and they asked me to come work for them and with them, and it was great. So I started out as a loan officer there, and we called us the Big Four. We had four of us that were producing. We were synergizing, and that's why one of the things that I really appreciate about the industry as a whole is that we all need synergy together. We all need to be able to come together and synergize together. And if there's a group of us that are just focused on it in a certain market, you can just really have some fun. And we had a lot of good fun. All of us were producing well over $60 million a year, and because we all had that level in the same market, it was just electric.
It's interesting when you do get a few positive-minded people together. It really can shield you from the noise.
Totally.
So I think it's cool.
Yeah. So, but then from there you just get opportunity. I mean, I love being an originator. I still have my license. I'm still doing a few loans here and there. But the reason I chose this route in my career was when I moved to Countrywide, I started in a back office with me and my processor. And inside of 3 years, we built it from nothing to we were doing over $300 million a year. With customer satisfaction numbers that were 99% plus, with all these different pieces to the puzzle. And I was getting more joy in watching other people, my team, succeed than I was doing their own personal loans myself. And one day, I got a call from one of the leaders at Countrywide and said, "Hey, there's an area job open. We'd really like you to take it." And at first, I'm like, "Oh, no, I'm good." Second time they come back, "No, I'm good." Because one of the things that we always have to realize in this business is really important to realize that this business will eat you alive family-wise if you don't have standards put in place that you know where your bread's buttered with your family. And that's why I turned it down a couple times. But then the third time they came back, my wife said, "Rob, you love building teams and people, and you love people. That's your passion." And we put ourselves in a financial position that, we're okay. And when she said that, she's like, I know you're going to be happy you're doing that. And so that's kind of where I took off, and I was a producing area manager.
So unpack that for people who don't understand what that is. What is it? What is that position?
So a producing area manager basically is I was at that point I was managing 12 offices across the state of Utah, and I was helping them grow their business by building relationships with the realtors and builders, and then on top of that I was producing my own business, but it had to do with chemistry and synergy, and developing trust together so that we celebrated our wins together, that we had everybody feel like they were part of a team. One of the biggest mistakes in the industry right now, I believe, is that we're not helping our teammates feel valued. Everybody has to feel like they're a part of a team. You think of all the employment opportunities we have out there. If you take a job and you don't feel valued, you don't feel like you synergize with the leadership, you don't feel like you're appreciated for the things that you contribute with your gifts and talents, how far does that job go for you? That's the difference. Is the future has to do with creating opportunities for people where they feel they know that you're after their success, number one, over and above your own personal success and over and above the company's success. You're just trying to be a huge fan of their success and their and create value for them.
I'm curious where this evolved, because you didn't feel that way coming out of the gate, right? As a new loan officer. What influence did individuals or examples of different company cultures that got you to that point? I hope I'm phrasing that in a way that you understand the question. I'm just curious how that evolved.
It's through examples. Honestly, there's good examples of leadership and there's bad examples of leadership. And I remember coming home one time very frustrated, and I was talking to my dad, and I said, Dad, I'm just frustrated because I blatantly saw my boss do something so blatantly wrong, but I know if I call him on it, I jeopardize my future, right? And I said, what do I do? He said, tuck that away in your arsenal and realize that that's not who you want to be. And you go above and beyond in everything you do to do the right thing. Now, I will tell you, I'm not perfect. There's no way I'm perfect. But I will tell you, my dad's advice was right. We have to go above and beyond in all cases to be our best selves. We have to have a standard in how we handle ourselves in business. We have to have a standard in how we are in our personal lives. We have to have integrity that comes through, that people generally know it's genuine. Too many people in the world, they give it for a short time because it's their job to do it. But I take a little different approach. I looked at the examples of all my different leaders, and I saw some that truly cared about the people that worked with them, and they were friends for a lifetime. So I will say, to me, the difference was when I saw Gary Johnson, Kevin Haycock, and a few other key leaders that I worked with, that they truly valued the same way I did. And like, these are friendships for a lifetime. It's not just because we work together. And both of you have spent time where we haven't been able to work together. But guess what? We stayed connected because of a friendship. And that's really what I want all our listeners to understand, it is that relationships start with building up trust and genuine concern for the well-being of one another.
Yeah. One thing that I've actually noticed is in our line of work, there are people that put money first and people second. Mm-hmm. And then there's others that put people first and let money be a byproduct of helping people accomplish their goals, their dreams, solve their problems, right? Money being a byproduct of helping people. And my observation of you and working with Sean are two examples of money being a byproduct, not being the primary focus. So
yeah, in fact, it's funny you say that, because Sean and I have had many conversations, and I love him for this. He's had many conversations, and Sean, by the way, has been a very huge influence and mentor to my son Josh. But what I love about this is that, you know, Sean and I have talked about the process and the experience a customer has or a realtor has in the whole loan process. How they feel going through the process. Are their questions answered? Do they feel like it's in control, or do they feel like it's scattered? You know, and putting together a delivery system in a way that's not fake, but is totally genuine, and the customer knows at the end that you're in their corner and that you have a customer for life. And I really appreciated about our conversation. And I will tell you, you know, Sean, Josh is one of our top producers in the company. And he often brings up, I really love the mentorship under Sean, and that thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't know that was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was I mean, what, 3-4 years ago?
4 years ago. Yeah, 4 years ago now. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Josh would just call and pick my brain. The thing that I respected about Josh is he would ask, he would listen, but then he would go and do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's one thing to go and say, hey, tell me all you're doing, and tell me your secret, and in the mortgage industry, there's really not like a secret. It's just the hard work and doing the same things over and over. But he went and did it, did all the hard stuff. So that's good to hear. He's doing really well. I need to call him.
Yeah. Honestly, he would appreciate a call. It's fun, but what's neat about it is that that's a perfect example of the mentorship and the culture of we, I call it. That's the example of the culture of we that we're talking about. All of us learn through our experiences, some good, some bad. I had a case yesterday where a loan officer called me and they said, I'm in a real pickle. And I said, okay, what's going on? And they told me, they said, hey, I made a mistake. I misquoted something. This is what it is. I don't know what to do. Do I just walk away from it? Do I just say, see you later? Sorry, I made a mistake. And I just sat back and listened for a minute. And I said, what do you think? The loan officer already knew. I think I've got to work through it and find out a way to make it right. And I said, that's right. And so I paved a path that we can make it right. Yes, it's going to cost him some money to work it out. But I said, now how do you feel about that solution? And teaching someone and mentoring them to not walk away from a problem, but be a solution-minded person is a key factor in raising up the future in any business, whether it's real estate or mortgage. It's really something that we got to focus on.
I found in my own personal experience, our referral partners know that we're not perfect and things come up. They understand your intent is never to mislead, right?
Yeah.
But owning it, humanizes you, and most people respond well to it when you own a mistake.
Yeah, and just communicating too. Like if that loan officer were to just wait, and I think with time problems get worse.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And then a lot of times too, sometimes problems are much bigger in our own head than they are in reality. So you can like think about it and what am I going to say? And I've had a lot of times where I've called the client like, it's supposedly bad news to me, but they're like, oh yeah, I can do that. Or no, that's not too bad. Yeah, well, let's just do it.
Right.
And it's just like, what in the heck? I just like wasted half my day worrying about it, and it really wasn't even that bad.
I love that you said that. One of the biggest tips I got years ago was Rob, to make your days go better, to make your days go better, whatever's bothering you the most to start your day, make the phone call. Get it off your plate to start your day. Do not wait until you're in the afternoon and you're tired and you're still frustrated and agonizing. Get it off your plate and have the appropriate conversations so that you can go on and build on the future. And I'll never forget that, because I would, same thing, you'd lament all day and then you'd call and it, oh, it wasn't as bad as you thought.
Well, Rob, you were tired at the end of the day because of all the mental energy you spent worrying about
right.
it.
That's right.
Yeah, you wouldn't have been as tired by just getting her done.
That's right. That's right.
So on culture, you brought it up. So your history with a few different, you've worked with some really big companies, and you're at a medium-sized company now. Would you?
Yeah, I would say we're a small boutique company, and it is. It's interesting. You get with the big companies, and the big companies have their definite strengths and weaknesses. That they've got all the products, they've got all the platforms, and there's a lot of good to the bigger companies. But then you get the smaller companies, and you say, well, gosh, maybe I don't have all the products, but I've got the boutique stuff and the customer experience down and all that stuff, and you get to kind of play in between the mix. I think there's good and bad in both scenarios. But I will tell you what I've learned is that the culture is developed through the leadership and the branch managers that are part of the region. And that is the communication and the sharing that takes place. about what, hey, we're trying this in our market. What are you trying in your market? And creating that synergy that we're constantly bouncing ideas off of each other. There's some companies that have that vision of, oh, that's their company. They don't have to share anything that they're doing, and that actually hurts a company's growth. A true culture is a culture of law of abundance, and that law of abundance has to do with, hey, I can share. I'm going to share whatever I have to help you be successful. I will share it. Because
without reservation.
Without reservation. Not even, oh, I'm going to share this, but I want to kick back. No, there's none of that. It's literally, I'm sharing this because I want you to be successful in your life, not just business. And that kind of mentality is a key to culture. Second key to culture that I found is you have to find ways with every employee that works with you to show appreciation and celebrate their wins. I don't care how big or small. Companies.
Ops, you're saying?
Yes.
Everyone.
Ops, sales.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it. Sales gets all the fun little stuff, trips and all that stuff. Well, the reality is that our operations teams are every bit as important to the whole process, because they, with the right relationship that you build with them, they can help make your career.
I totally agree with that.
100%, yeah. It's very overlooked.
It is, and I'll never forget it. So when I was their area manager, we had an operations center that was servicing our group, and the head operations manager, every time I'd have a tough loan, she'd go, I just told him to approve it.
Okay. Wish it was that easy.
Yeah.
And I said to her one time, I said, Tammy, why did you say that? Tell me what. She's like, well, what I've learned with you is that you do enough due diligence that you know that this meets the guidelines. And so when I have an underwriter come on one of your loans and say, hey, I don't know if this meets the guidelines, every time I brought it to you, you'd said, oh yeah, but if you look in here, boom, 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 here, you can do it. And she goes, and I've done that now for a couple of years with you, and I've just and you haven't had one buyback, and so I trust you. And when she said that to me, it meant the world, because now I'd earned some trust where she didn't have to question. She knew the standard that was being set. And I that's why I say operations partners and the relationship we have with them are so critical to our success.
But I want to go and talk about what you just said right there with the trust. It took a couple years to establish it.
Yep.
But it can only take one event to destroy it.
Oh, yeah.
So I think it's cool that we're highlighting that. Trust, I can't remember which Covey wrote the book, but The Speed of Trust, right? It will speed up time and reduce cost.
Oh, yeah.
You know, with high levels of trust, low levels of trust, slow the process down and add cost. That concept is key to not once you have the trust, you also have to maintain it.
Yeah, you do. So. Very good point. And it comes with deposits. I mean, you take a bank and you're making deposits. There's occasional withdrawals because you make a mistake. Every single one of us will make a mistake. Okay? The question is, have we made enough deposits to work through the mistakes so it's not a big event?
Well said. Really well said. I want to go back a little bit to your career. We started at the beginning, loan officer, branch manager, area manager. Now you're the executive vice president of production for, you talked about a boutique company, but how many branches does Momentum have?
We've got 11 branches.
Okay, so
yeah.
Boutique, I just want to be clear with anyone who's listening. It's not like we're talking a little teeny tiny, organization. And you oversee all of the sales. Correct. Every loan officer falls under your umbrella.
That's correct.
It sounds like these concepts of trust and relationships, those are principles that apply to each one of those jobs as you have progressed and taken on more responsibility.
Very much so. Very much so. it's just like with everything. What I feel very grateful about, honestly, is that I was able to start off as a loan officer, working with a processor, and building relationships there, and then I was able to go to a branch manager and build relationships within that group. Area manager, same thing. You're building relationships all the way around, and that really is just helping and serving each other, helping each other be successful. But as you do that, when I jumped to area manager, the reason I did is that Brian Hale was his name. Brian Hale says, Rob, your numbers are off the charts. Can you duplicate it? Can you continue to coach and mentor and help people be successful? Because we got regionals that can't do that, you know. And I took it as a personal challenge because I love relationships. So then I became a regional manager, and regional manager was over 12 states, and you know, every different state brings different challenges depending on, you know, where your business is. But I learned a lot through that experience, because different people look at different things, especially in different states, differently. And so adapting and understanding where someone's coming from and meeting them where they're at and helping them build from there is a critical piece to success in any business. But it's really important, especially as you break out of your, I'll take the St. George culture even, and you move up to other cultures. You have to understand what makes them tick and what's important to them. If you just assume it's just the St. George culture or the Utah culture, you're sort of saying that. So that experience really helped me a lot, being involved on a more national level.
So I guess here's what I look at. We're all relationship people here at the table, right?
Yeah.
But I'm looking at, I'm that belly to belly, like we referenced at the beginning, kind of guy that likes to build a relationship. But as you're expanding and webbing out, there's that many more people. How do you maintain, as you have more responsibility over more people, to have that maintain the relationship, add to new relationships, and juggle it all?
It's funny you say that. So I've been asked that question many, many times, and you guys have worked with me before, so you understand. But what I've learned is we have to create a relationship tight enough that we start to believe the same standard of who we're going to stand up for. And so my branch managers that I work with are the keys to the future success and the culture and the branding of the company. If I'm the only one at the top of the house saying this is what we're doing, I'm a top-down leader, and that's not what I want to be. I want to be a leader that allows all of us to add our values together, combine our strengths and weaknesses, and have value together. And that starts with collaborating with each branch manager and allowing them to add their strengths and talents to our culture, and that makes us even better. And so, honestly, that's a very important key as you're building out a future, is not just be someone that's barking, this is what you're supposed to do, but teaching and learning and building relationships so that you all rise together. But it's really, the only way to expand is to get similar mindsets on the same page for culture.
But what I admire about you, and going a little bit deeper on that, you've been at these different companies in your career, and you have maintained really good relationships with people after you leave and you're no longer working with them day to day.
Blessing.
What have you done to maintain that? Is it just a matter of just check-ins, and then how do you keep it all straight in your head?
There's like a magic, like the little black book, or is it like the secret CRM?
No,
what?
Due to Rob's age, it's Rolodex.
Oh, the pager. It's a pager.
Thanks for that, Ben. I appreciate that.
Typewriter.
It's definitely a typewriter for sure. But
Pony Express. Not that old, right?
Exactly. And there's something to be said for that, because yes, at times I was on the Rolodex. Okay. What I'll tell you to that is, I'm very grateful, because most people that have worked with me, I believe, and I'm sure I've made some mistakes, and for that I'm really sorry if I have, but I will tell you, I care about every individual that works with me, and their wives or spouses and their families. Getting to know them on an individual basis, what's going on in their world, what's making them tick, what's most important to them. I love hearing about it. I just had a recent situation that I was really touched by. That one of the past loan officers that worked with me, his daughter is graduating this year, and he called me starting laughing, and he goes, she made it a point to make sure that she sent you an announcement that she's graduating. And I just said, and I love her. And he goes, she knows you do. And I will tell you, I really feel that about people that I work with. It's deeper than just business. We all have to be, this life is hard itself. We have to be huge cheerleaders of one another. Think about different families. We're in different spots in our lives. We're raising kids. We're sending kids off to college. We're some of us are kids in diapers still. There's lots of different environments. I really come to be very grateful for those relationships, that I get to meet them where they're at and understand what they're going through, and try to make deposits together that will last a lifetime, not just for the business. And I was touched by that phone call this last week, because when I got that phone call, his wife was actually on the phone too, and she's like, we were just sitting talking about how she just wanted to make sure that you got her announcement, you know, and I called her, and it was just a wonderful experience. And so I would just tell you, it's just deeper than just business. Every relationship that we have, every touch that we have with one another matters. And if it's self-serving in any way, it doesn't mean as much.
Dilutes it down.
Yep.
So like tactically though, like, do you have it like Mondays I'm calling, right? So for me on the sales side, I'm like thinking, okay, like how do you fit this in on top of, managing a pipeline and managing a branch?
Yeah.
You know, I know in your role, that might be a big piece of like your job description, but
it's different.
You've done it through all different types of roles too. So like, I guess, do you see something on social media, or maybe walk us through like when you see it and when you call and who you call? Because an example I wanted to share was Robin. Yeah. Remember from first? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So she was, when you first joined First Colony, she actually came to me and she's like, hey, you know what? I worked with Rob at Countrywide, and he was one of the only people that stayed in touch with me. And he would just call from time to time, and she's like, Rob's the guy. And so it's like, she was just an ops person, not even a sales person that would, like you said, have a personal benefit if you recruited her or anything like that. And then your paths aligned. Yeah. So like, walk me through, like how you view it. And
well, number one view is, the question I always ask myself is, what opportunities do we have in our current environment to improve the life of someone and give them a leg up and add value to them as they add value to us? Okay, so there's got to be a mutual, hey, I want to add value to you, and you're going to add value to me, and we're all going to rise together. That's number one. Is you gotta find a common ground there that because the mistake people make in recruiting is, oh yeah, come work here, it's the best place ever. Okay, well, everyone says that, and so how are we going deeper? But the thing that I've learned the most is, on top of they want to know about the company, but they want to know what they're signing up for. They want to know that they're just not going to be a number. That what they do does matter, and that they can celebrate their both their business, personal. You know, I have to laugh with Sean and I'll tease him about this for a second. So the first time I met Sean, and I start asking him about personal stuff, he's looking at me like, "What are you doing? This is business. I don't want to talk about this."
Sure.
Comp. I mean,
401k.
Yeah. Okay.
Sign on.
Yeah.
Get to the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, and so, but I learned that about Sean, in terms of he was so focused on his business as a process. So we started our relationship understanding that was it. But then over time, we morphed into, hey, tell me about this. This is what I'm dealing with here, and that's really what happens. But the systems that I will tell you is number one, I make notes with different conversations, and I've been blessed with a mind that I can understand what's going on with people's lives. But number one, I look at opportunities within the company that I could bless the lives of someone that I know, and then I'll start networking, whether it be a title company, whether it be other real estate agents. I'll start networking, because as your business partners recommend different people, and the people start raving about working with you, all of a sudden that builds up the whole culture of what you're trying to build. But the second thing is that every week, to your point, Sean, you have to, if you're going to build a brand, you have to have time set up that you do pick up the phone and talk. And Lance Miller, my partner, he always says to me, he goes, "You are always on the phone." Okay, you are always on the phone. And he goes, and it takes a lot of time, because he goes, "You're talking about their kids. You're talking about, everything." He goes, "Sometimes I don't think you do mortgage." Okay, but the reality is that as we sit and talk about different people's lives and molding what their opportunity is, we have to include everyone in the family. It's not just the originator.
Why do you say that? Break it down for us.
The reason I say that is that there's decisions that are made on a family level. If we were to have all our wives come in the room and say, "What do you like about the mortgage business? What you hate about the mortgage business?" they could answer that awful fast. Okay, and so, but it's very important. And I'll give you an example. We had Ben and I had Tanner Gatchell, who we all know. And when we came down to recruit him to join one of our previous employers, he was just kind of on the fence. Okay, we brought his wife in, and we had dinner. We talked about things, and I'll never forget. I said, "Is there anything we haven't covered? Is there anything, questions that you have?" And she goes, "Is this real? Is this something that I can say he can make a living and support our family?" And I said, "Yes, wholeheartedly. He's got the skills. In fact, this is what we'll do. We're going to set a goal that if he hits this certain goal, I'm going to send your whole family to Disneyland." And she's like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah. How's that for putting the money where my mouth is?" But the key was, it wasn't about the money. It was allowing her to get over the fears. Wives have fears of things falling apart. Wives have fears of, and spouse, I shouldn't say wives, any spouse has different fears based on how the reactions are at home. So it's really important that we include and understand the goals of the spouses involved and how we can best support them in their lives that they're trying to plan. Now, in some cases, it doesn't work because there's a separation. I just want to work. I just kind of like you were when I first met you, Sean. I'm focused on my businesses. I'm just going to do this, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But what I've learned is that throughout our careers, it's really important that we focus on balancing out life with family. And in order to make the right fits for the right reasons, you have to go deeper than just making a phone call and say, "Come work for me."
So I'd love to get some of your take and advice on this balance of family and work. To be successful in the mortgage business, real estate as a whole, you got to pay your dues. You got to put in some time.
Yep.
How have you found that straddle? Because you obviously got into it before you started. You were graduated from college. Were you married?
I just got married.
Okay, so no kids at that point,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then to go through this transition of raising kids where the demands at home increase, and now you're to the point where kids have left the home. How have you managed being a good employee, accomplishing your goals and chasing some pretty large goals, but still be a present husband and father at home?
I love that question. The biggest thing I would say is live what you preach. If you say that your family is most important to you, what are you doing to make deposits in your family to make that happen? And you're right. In order to be in the mortgage business and really start establishing a good career, you have to grind it for at least 2 to 3 years to establish a database of clients. But I'll tell you, once I was grinding that hard, every loan officer comes to a point in their career where their spouse is going, can we ever shut off this phone because you're never present? And I myself got there. I get home one Friday night, and my wife goes, it's great money you're making, you're doing a good job, but we never see you and you're not really present. Something's got to change. And I'll never forget it. You're always worried that you're going to lose business if you don't pick up your phone. But I made a list of all my real estate agents and builders that I was working with, and I thought, okay, what's most important? And I knew it was most important. It's my family. And I knew that if I focus on my family and try to do what's right by my family, but still work hard on my business, that everything would be okay. And so I made a plan, and I said, okay, and I sat down with my wife, I said, okay, Monday nights, what do you want me home by? She's like, I want you home by 5 o'clock. Great. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, if I work evenings to help take those things, that work, yep, that's great. Wednesday I've got, stuff with the kids with mutual night and activity night, so we'll do that. And then Friday night is our date night, and that's has been our whole lives. Friday night, date night, this is the time, and that's never wavered. But it's really interesting. Because I was meeting people whenever they could. That's just how it was, and you just went and did it. But I went out to all my business partners and said, look, guys, I love your business. I may lose your business, some of your business because of this, but this is my new plan. This is what I have to. I'm committing to my family, and that's what's most important. But it was really interesting. I thought I was going to lose 25 to 30% of my business because I thought they need me all the time. How am I going to? But what's really interesting is that because I had a standard of what was most important to me, everyone but one of my contacts said, I'll wait for you. And so my realtors would say, Rob's not available tonight because he's with his family, but he's worth the wait. And I was grateful for that. But I will tell you, communication with your spouse or significant other, and mapping out a plan of what you can do together, and you have their support in how you're grinding it. Because I was still grinding, but because we made a plan together, we were able to do it together. It made all the difference. And I was able to mark out, hey, I'm spending time with my kids, because as your kids grow up and they go to, Ben, you're coaching baseball games and things like that. Why do you do that? Well, because that's what's most important, And so it's really critical.
Because my wife told me to.
Amen. Amen. Okay. Amen. Amen. So I'll tell you, I mean, our wives and spouses are so key to listening to what their needs are and what we need to do with them. But I've never gone wrong. In my whole career, every time I've made a decision based on what's best for my family, it's always worked out.
The work stuff just worked out.
The work stuff just worked out. And in fact, when I left Guild several years ago and came to First Colony, it wasn't because Guild was a bad company. Guild's a great company. But my wife had gotten lupus, and for me to be on the road all the time, with her dealing with her health, it wasn't working. And even though I didn't really want to necessarily leave this job that I've been working so hard on, I said, you know what? I think this is time. I need to make sure I be. And what's ironic is, we got taken care of. We were still successful. We still kept going. But that was a key factor that I will always stand by, is you make a decision based on what's best for you and your family, and stand up for what's right and do the right thing, and it'll all be taken care of. Doesn't mean that you're perfect. It means you're still going to make mistakes. You're still going to have to navigate through some things. But the philosophy behind really going deep with your family sets a standard. Years later, people that have worked with me, they know that I have a date night every Friday. And I'm grateful for that.
Well, what I love about what you're saying is you created boundaries not only with your wife, so it allows her to mentally be a proactive based off of the timeline rather than reacting to you getting on the phone again, right?
Yep.
And then the referral partners also understand, hey, this is Rob's quiet time. They know when they can expect a fairly quick return phone call and when not to. I love that. I appreciate you unpacking that.
Yeah. So, but it's really, honestly, guys, it's really all about personal. You have to make it personal. Every aspect of our lives, we need to make it personal.
Your family evolves, right?
Yep.
You had little kids, you had preteens, teenagers, then they started leaving the house. Did you find certain time frames or years that were more difficult than others? I'm curious about that insight.
Yeah, it's definitely the teenage years.
Oh boy,
Yeah.
it gets harder.
I'm just telling you. So the initial. So one of the things that I've tried to do with my kids, and I believe, knock on wood, I believe that all my kids know how much I love them because I've spent time with them. But I've tried to make sure that they know that I love them. I spend time with them and make memories with them. But it's really interesting because when they're younger, taking them on an overnight stay at a Marriott and swimming in the swimming pool and getting McDonald's, okay, was a simple deposit that works really well. And as they're growing up, from ages 1 until they're 8 or 9, that really does the trick. And so you got to find different activities that you can do to strengthen your family within that. But then when you get to teenage years, they've got influences of their teenage friends, and making the time to make memories. And in my case, it was a boat. Okay, I bought a boat, and I said, you know what? I know they're going to want to be with their friends, but I want to know what they're doing with their friends, so I'm going to invite their friends on the boat. But coming up with a standard of how you're going to make deposits with every member of your family, not just your spouse, but your spouse feels support if you're also spending time with your kids. And that balancing act is difficult. But what I found is that you've got to take each individual personality, just like we do in business, and find out what they get excited about. And I'll tell you that the dates that I go on with some of my kids, when I first started going on dates with my kids when they were teenagers, first couple of dates are like looking at me, Dad, what's the angle? Where are you going with this? And once they got over the fact that I was just generally making an effort to know them and to just be with them, they relaxed. And I got more out of them telling me about their friends and all that. And that's one of the biggest tips I'll tell you is you cannot react. Even if your kid tell you something that you go, oh my gosh, you can't react. Okay? You have to say, oh, that's interesting. Tell me what you thought about that. because and that's one of the best tips I ever got was don't react and just listen for a minute longer, because your kid usually has it figured out. But if you jump in, they'll go defense mode again. But I'll tell you, the family dynamic, we have to be able to pivot and adjust together as a family and make different goals that we're going to accomplish together, and let your kids know what the goals are. Too many parents, they try to hide their kids from any stress. That's good to a certain point, but it's actually good to help kids really go deep with, this is why how the family works. Hey, we're all working to support the family, but we have goals together, and we also celebrate together. And I learned that specifically from my mom, and she passed away about 8 years ago, and she just means the world to me. But my dad was working 2 full-time jobs to support our 16 kids in the family. And
did I hear that right? 16.
10 natural and 6 adopted.
Wow.
And I'll never forget it. I mean, money was tight. And she came up with an idea. She goes, you know what, I want to take the family on a vacation, and I want to go to Disneyland. We don't have the money. but here's the plan. I'm going to make pies, and we're going to go not in our neighborhood because people feel obligated. We're going to go way across town, and we're going to sell pies door to door, and whatever we make, we're going to put in a jar to go to Disneyland. And I'll tell you, my family talks about that for years and years, because we all bonded together, and we saved up enough to go camp on the beach in Malibu Beach, Leo Creo area, and went to Disneyland and SeaWorld as a family trip. But including our kids on some of those goals that we set and celebrations that we set is so critical to their growth as well as our own. But those are some fun memories.
So these are universal principles that are both business and personal and family.
Yeah.
The trust, the relationship, the time, it parlays into both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a previous guest on, and just with you sharing of, making time for the kids. His oldest son, they went to a Hawaii trip. I don't know if you know the story.
I do.
And it was like his senior year, and it was just kind of a spontaneous trip. And he talked about, he's like, I might, like, it's really bad timing. It might not work with my schedule. Like he was the owner of a mortgage company, but he still made time for that.
Yeah.
And then fast forward a couple months later, his son passes away.
Yeah.
And so not only to your point of like making this a family thing, but it's just, you just never know how much time you really have with your kids either.
Yeah, I think that, he's a good man. Russ Brown's a good man, and I really admire him for his perspective, and that's a tough situation. But yeah, we don't know what the future holds, but we need to proceed forward and treat everyone we come in contact with as much respect and love as possible, especially those in our own family. And if those people, if we put work above our time with our family, an extra dollar isn't going to matter.
So I'm curious, if we had your family here, your kids and your wife, and we were to ask them, what are some of the things that they disliked about the mortgage industry, how would they answer?
So that's evolved. Okay, I would say when they were younger, they were saying, "Man, Dad is always on the phone," and when I try to talk to him because he's on the phone, he's not present. Because our minds are always in the mortgage business. We're always trying to put together puzzles, and honestly, we actually talked. I learned to talk to the kids about it. I want a relationship with you. Dad's trying to support the family, but I would say, number one, on the phone too much and not time blocking enough to say, I can be present with you. I would say number two, sometimes they didn't like the way random clients would treat me. And I would be all kind. And sometimes they'd be on speaker, and they'd hear the customer that's a little frustrated, and I'd be calm and walk them through it. And they're like, man, dealing with the public, that's hard, But it was really interesting. But then I would say the last thing they would say is, Dad, it's made you conservative. And I always say this: every loan officer that works out there should have their finances in order, so they can ride the waves. We're going through a wave right now where it's tight. And those that saved some money and are living within their means, don't have a lot of debt, you can still make a living as a mortgage loan officer. But if, my kids today would say, you learned the principles of taking care of your family, and you adjusted and pivoted as you needed to based on the needs of the family, and we love you for that. The other thing that they'll tell you is they've never heard me swear. And I didn't know that until a few years ago. My kids were telling their friends that they'd never heard me swear, and their friends were like, "What?" But I had a lesson in high school where I was a sophomore, and I was playing varsity basketball, and the seniors had a goal to get me to swear.
Childish.
And so I was going through going through the key, and they'd leveled me a few times, and the head coach pulls me over. He goes, "Rob, just swear. That's all they're trying to get you to do." And I said, "Coach, not going to happen." And but the kids knew that story, but it's funny because kids watch everything you do and how you say it and all that stuff. And I'm sure even with your younger kids, they mimic some of the things you're saying and doing. And it's so critical. But those little standards that we come up with are so critical to helping our kids set their own standards of what they're going to stand up for.
Like that, my kids can't say that about me. They've heard their dad swear.
Yeah,
I need to take that a lesson from Rob there. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I've enjoyed the business aspect and the family conversation even more. I know how hard it is to juggle, and I feel like I've got 4 young kids at home, youngest being 18 months, and it is a balance of supporting spouses, kids, and not feel like you're falling behind and not meeting expectations at work. Yeah. But my takeaway from your conversation is as you're bold, as you're setting some boundaries, you'll probably be surprised at the response you get, that people respect it and want to support you more because of it. So I appreciate the nuggets that you shared with us today.
Yeah. No, that's great. And again, the last thing I will tell you is focus on the wins. The world will tell us all the bad stuff that's going on. The media is full of it. But each individually, if we can focus on the wins that we're having, the goals that we're setting, the things we're going to accomplish together, and build on our wins, and try to minimize the losses, and not that the losses consume us, we'll build a better culture all the way around in our environment. So continue to focus on the wins.
Yeah. Well, my call to action to any of our listeners today, think of 3 individuals that you might not have connected with recently that you want to reconnect with. Make the phone call, shoot the text, write the email, reconnect. Relationships matter. And other than that, that's a wrap.